3 sinister true stories of haunting isolation, revealed terrifying secrets discovered at night. The night wraps around Sarah like a cold blanket, and as she finishes her shift at the diner, disquiet settles over her suburban home. "It's just the wind," she whispers, trying to shake the ripples of fear. But as dusk deepens, a chorus of laughter rises from a neighboring porch, chilled whispers floating over manicured lawns. The sounds churn her stomach. The kids, their laughter is too gleeful, too close. It's a child's playfulness mixed with an edge, sharp and uninviting. She keeps herself busy, humming lullabies to Jamie, tucking him into bed, but the world outside feels wrong. Shadows shift like spirits in the corner of her eye, and every creak of wood sounds like a whispering conspiracy. Just a tired mind, she tries to convince herself, but the truth gnaws at her gut. Then comes the first hint of true horror. A low murmur slips through the cracks of her thin walls, brushing against her ears. Familiar voices laced with something sinister. She doesn't even know. The words slice through the silence, filling her with dread. Sarah's heart races. They're talking about her. The neighbors, the once warm faces, have turned cold and judgmental in her mind. She grips the edge of the counter tightly, knuckles turning white, as she strains to hear more. Just wait until panic lances through her. What do they know that she doesn't? Forcing herself to take action, she decides to head to the police station. Maybe they can help her navigate this creeping dread. But when she reaches the station, the officer, a kind man with a reassuring smile, now looks at her with suspicion. "It's late, Sarah." "I'm sure there's nothing to worry about." His words float above her, heavy and dismissive. Just loyal to the neighborhood, she shakes off his words, but a piercing chill runs down her spine. Who could she trust? As she trudges home, the air feels electric, charged with unseen eyes watching her every move. Panic claws at her throat. The shadows stretch as she hurries, flickering streetlights barely illuminating the full-blown fear racing through her veins. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Back home, shadows dance in her periphery. The noises return louder now, with angry thuds and frantic whispers that seep into her sanity, banging, scraping, and laughter. No, not Jamie's laughter. The air grows thick with dread as she edges toward the window, heart hammering. The neighbors huddle in a tight circle, their eyes glint like feral animals in the gloom. Their laughter is twisted, a grotesque parody of joy. Panic surges. She darts to her children's room, praying that they'll be safe. But the once familiar comfort now feels like a coffin. Silence reigns where playful chatter should be. The air, once warm, chills her skin as she steps tentatively into the dim room. What if they're already here? Slim hope slithers away. As shadows loom large overhead, she flicks on the light, her breath hitching in her throat. In that instant, terror coils around her, and she realizes, with growing dread, she's not just alone, she's in a trap. Her sanctuary has turned against her. Who's been watching? How deep does this web of terror go? Just as the darkness seems to swell and swallow her whole, the door slams shut behind her, sealing her fate as secrets entrenched in the shadows await their reckoning. Panic grips Sarah like a vice. The door's sudden slam reverberates through the hollow silence, a dire proclamation that her world has tipped into the abyss. Her heart races, beating in her ears like a frantic drum. She wheezes, forcing air into her lungs as her limbs freeze, caught in a moment of sheer terror. The room feels smaller, suffocating, the walls creeping closer. "Jamie," she calls, but her voice trembles, marred by fear. The shadows in the corners whisper, beckoning her to listen closely. Hesitating, she knows she must move. She darts to the closet and fumbles with the door, hoping to find her son hidden away, safe from the madness unraveling outside. The closet is empty, save for an old winter coat and a crumpled towel. No Jamie. Dread cascades over her. She scans the room, frantic. The bed, God, please let him be under the blanket. But as she approaches, it's clear he's not there either. Her vision blurs with tears, heart racing faster as she turns toward the door. She pushes against the heavy frame, but it withstands her desperate efforts. The laughter outside morphs into a sickening cacophony, echoing her worst fears. She doesn't know, just wait until, they mock, their words spiraling into a vortex of confusion and dread. With a sudden rush of resolve, she looks for anything that can help. Her eyes catch the lamp on the nightstand. She grabs it, its cool metal grounding her for a brief moment. Just then, the floor creaks ominously behind her. Sarah spins, gripping the lamp tightly, the fear eclipsing her heart. The shadows shift, and a figure slips through the threshold of the doorway, silent and shrouded in darkness. Mommy, the voice is fragile, impossibly soft. It's Jamie. Relief floods her, she rushes toward him, the lamp clattering to the floor as she kneels. But Jamie stands there, his eyes hollow, devoid of warmth, his face expressionless. They're coming for us, he whispers, as if caught between realities. What do you mean, baby? Who's coming? Her voice cracks, desperation threading through each word. But he just shakes his head, moving towards her like a marionette with cut strings. Sarah's stomach churns as dread thickens like smoke filling the room. Suddenly, the window bursts open, sending the curtains billowing wildly, and a gust of cold air sweeps through. It rushes past her, carrying the laughter of the neighbors, a chilling melody beckoning her as she steps back, rooted in place by fear. There's no way out, Mommy, Jamie murmurs, his voice eerie, void of innocence. The room vibrates, shadows crawling up the walls like spiders. They know everything they know about us. With each word, the laughter crescendos outside, morphing into unsettling chants. Their faces blend into the night, a sea of twisted grins and empty eyes, lurching closer in her mind's eye. Panic overcomes her senses. No, she won't let them take her. She won't, grabbing Jamie's hand, they dart for the window, a desperate bid for escape. But before she can grasp the ceiling above, the shadowy figure from earlier blocks her path. All she can see are its shimmering eyes, reflecting only malice, but then, just as the entity lunges, a blinding light flashes. Everything freezes, the laughter, the shadows, even her pounding heart. For a split second, an angelic glow sweeps through, filling the room with warmth. In that instant of stillness, a thought captures Sarah's mind: what if this was only the beginning? As the light flickers, she hears a distant voice call, help is on the way. But the door begins to crack open again, and she realizes, what if it's not help at all? Stay close to me, Jamie, she whispers, dreading the worst things that might come next. The opportunity for salvation seems imminent yet so far away, and a chilling dread creeps back in. What if help was just another ruse? The door slowly creaks open wider, shadows spilling inside with a promise of return. Unseen figures wait just beyond. In that terrible moment, as the light dims and laughter floods back into the room, Sarah once again feels the trap closing in. What fresh horrors await on the other side? The door creaked wide, the shadows spilling across the floor like ink blotting out the light. Sarah's heart raced anew, a hammer pounding against her ribcage. She pulled Jamie closer, the essence of him cradled against her, but his body felt cold, too cold. Don't let it take you, she whispered, more to herself than him, as unseen fingers seemed to scratch at the edges of her sanity. The laughter from outside swelled, steeping into their small sanctuary, echoing with a twisted joy that made her skin crawl. The doorway expanded until silhouettes materialized, their outlines barely discernible in the dim light. A chorus of faces emerged, each one grotesquely stretched, mouths wide in smiles that felt more like gaping maws waiting to devour the light. Let us, and the voices beckoned, 1,000 whispers melding into one sinister tune. "We just want to play. Who are you?" Sarah shouted, her throat raw with desperation. "What do you want?" The figures paused, their head tilting in unison, as if savoring her fear. "You know what we want, Sarah," one hissed, the voice slithering through the air like smoke. "We've been watching you. We know your heart." Images of Jamie playing in the yard, his laughter ringing through the air, danced in her mind as the memories blurred and twisted, darkened. Was that laughter now? Or the taunting echo of the neighbors she had once known? "Leave us alone!" she cried, feeling trapped in an ever-tightening noose of terror. But the figures only grinned wider, their intentions curling around her like tendrils reaching for her very soul. "Sarah," Jamie's voice trembled, pulling her attention back. He looked up, his little face marred by confusion. Are they coming to play?" "No," she replied sharply, her heart lurching at the thought of her son being ensnared by their darkness. She pressed his tiny hand hard against her own. "We're not playing." The figures seemed to shimmer, flickering like a dying candle. One stepped forward, almost gliding, and in its elongated fingers, a toy gleamed, a small, colorful ball. "We found this near your door last night," it said, the smile never faltering. "Everyone plays. Don't you want to join?" The ball rolled across the floor and paused at Sarah's feet. Its colors whipped around with an inviting charm that melted under the blanket of fear enveloping her. She could feel it, something deep in her pulsating with allure, a memory flickering like a fractured film reel. "Mommy, can I have it?" Jamie asked softly, his naivety cutting through her. "No!" she screamed, panic surging. "It's a trap." But the words trapped her in their own net, a realization surfacing like bile in her throat. Jamie was already slipping, his interest piqued by the siren's call of the ball. Before she could react, the figures surged closer, almost vibrating with delighted energy. "Playtime awaits." Sarah's mind raced. She felt them drawing nearer, dark fingers stretching out. "Don't touch him!" she screamed, grabbing Jamie and backing against the nightstand, desperation turning her into a shield. But the shadows were relentless, vibrating with energy, laughing as the room began to pulse, the walls shifting like a heartbeat. "Help us, Sarah!" Jamie cried, the innocence in his voice laced with an unsettling chill. "They just want to play." As the figures twisted their bodies, moving in unison towards them like dancers in a haunted ballet, Sarah knew no matter what she did, their intentions were pure evil. In a moment of clarity, she saw it, beyond the door spun a vortex of dark light, a gateway to whatever horrors they served. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, she clenched Jamie's hand tighter, feeling the warmth slip from him as she faced the encroaching darkness. "Those who don't play, don't survive." The whisper softened, almost a caress, as if wrapping around her. "Do you know what you must do?" Sarah's breath hitched as panic clawed at her throat. "What if I don't?" A chilling laugh erupted, echoing through the dimly lit room. "Then we will take what is ours." The figures surged, a tide of darkness rushing toward them. What remained of her sanity slipped further away, and Sarah realized she had to choose her child's life or the darkness that beckoned them both. But the question lingered, threading through her mind like smoke choking the air. Who would remain to face whatever came next? Just then, the lights flickered erratically, plunging them into a heart-stopping darkness, the last vestiges of hope fading to shadows. Terror hung thick with uncertainty, squeezing her heart tighter as she held her breath. And as cold fingers reached for them, the play would inevitably begin. But with what cost? An ominous promise lingered in the air, and in her gut, she felt the chilling question echo faintly: what is the price of survival? The darkness swallowed them whole, the air thickening with unspoken dread. Sarah felt Jamie's hand tremble in her grip, his body eerily cool against her own. She scanned the room with frantic eyes, seeking an escape, while the shadows slithered closer, their forms merging into a nightmarish dance of malevolence. "Stay close to me," she urged, but the words sounded weak even to her ears, barely cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. Outside, the laughter morphed into taunts, echoing back to the innocence she desperately wanted to protect. "Let us play," the figures chorused again, their voices intertwining ominously, a twisted sing-song that echoed off the walls and crawled under her skin. "Get back! You can't have him!" Her voice cracked as she pushed Jamie behind her, standing firm against the tide of darkness. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of horror that filled the room, squeezing in tighter. As the laughter hit its peak, a figure lunged forward, nearly brushing against her arm. A rush of cold swept through her, chilling her to the bone. It pulled back, and for a moment, Sarah saw something fleeting, a glimpse of pity, perhaps sympathy. But it vanished in an instant, replaced with the grotesque smile that cloaked their true intentions. "Choose, Sarah." A figure spat, sharp teeth glinting like daggers in the gloom. "Your joy or your child?" "No!" Sarah shouted, the denial rising like bile. She could feel Jamie's breath quickening behind her, and it filled her with an urgency she hadn't anticipated. She needed a plan, a way out, anything but to succumb to their demands. "Let me show you." The one with the ball stepped forward, extending it once more, its vibrant colors now dulled, twisted by shadows. "This is not merely a game. This is freedom." Jamie's gaze drifted to the ball, his eyes aglow with an unmistakable longing. Every mother's instinct screamed to protect him, but the flicker of curiosity was a dangerous fire. "Please. Look at it," he said, gripping her shirt, his voice thick with wonder. "It's beautiful, it's a trick. Don't look at it." Sarah yelled, feeling a pang of desperation as she pulled him back. But it was too late. He was ensnared by the light swirling around the ball, his innocence a beacon for the lurking darkness. A wicked grin spread across the figures' faces. A pulse of energy throbbed in the air, alive with the thrill of the impending chaos. They moved in closer, shadows now coiling around Jamie, wrapping him in their suffocating embrace. "Join us, Jamie. You'll never be alone again, no." Sarah screamed, realizing with horrifying clarity that the figures would not stop until they had him, unless she intervened in a way she'd rather not. "You're lying." Her heart raced, adrenaline coursing through every fiber of her being, pushing her to in one sudden motion. She dropped to her knees, grabbing the ball with both hands. The moment her fingers made contact, the world warped, a nauseating wave of energy crashing over her. Images flooded her mind, a tempest of laughter, screams, and swirling shadows that threatened to bury her under their weight. "Let him go," she cried, teeth gritted as she struggled against the grip of their dark power. "He's not yours." But the laughter grew louder, drowning her out, filling her with an overwhelming surge of despair. "Keep it. Keep it all." The voices hissed, and Sarah felt her resolve slipping, her strength being siphoned away. "Mommy, help me." Jamie's voice cut through the chaos, tugging at her heart like a lifeline. It snapped her back to reality, and with renewed determination, she tightened her hold on the ball and yanked it back hard, channeling every ounce of her willpower. The figures recoiled, shadows distorting and twisting away from her as if in pain, their cries transforming into shrieks. "You'll regret this," they wailed, thrashing at the air with desperate fingers. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on with a violent sputter, illuminating the living room in blinding clarity. The figures hung back, shadows swallowing them whole, while Jamie looked up at her, confusion mixed with fear clouding his eyes. But the moment didn't last. The shadows began to seep away, retreating into the corners of the room, slowly vanishing into the void. "Did we win?" Jamie asked, voice barely above a whisper. The heaviness in the air lingered. "I don't know yet," Sarah replied, her spine prickling with uncertainty. They had bought a moment, perhaps even a reprieve, but at what cost? Out of the corner of her eye, she saw something. The ball lay there, its colors swirling, refusing to settle. Even in its stillness, she felt it pulsate with a sinister energy that called to her, echoed with laughter she could barely hear. And in that quiet, she understood. The game was far from over. Just what will they demand next? A chilling thought crept over her, and she realized the true horror hadn't left, it had simply paused. Would they come knocking again, now hungering for something more than a mere game? The thought left a cold dread pooling in her stomach. What threat lay beyond this moment, ready to entwine itself with her life once more? The lights flickered again, casting nervous shadows that danced along the walls, teasing the edges of sanity. Sarah kept her eyes glued on the ball, every pulse echoing her rising heartbeat. It was as if it breathed, ready to unleash whatever dark whim compelled it. "Mommy, I'm scared." Jamie's voice trembled, and she felt the weight of his fear suffocate the air around them. Just hold on tightly to me," Sarah replied, forcing her voice to remain steady despite the terror coiling in her gut. They needed to back away, to put distance between themselves and that cursed object, but her feet felt rooted to the floor. Suddenly, the laughter returned, a raucous wave, crashing against them like a funeral dirge, growing louder and more maniacal. It filled the room with a suffocating darkness that wrapped around them like barbed wire. Such a lovely game. The figures sang from the depths, their tones mocking, hypnotic. So fun. So very fun. "Shut up!" Sarah shouted, gripping Jamie's hand tighter, tingles of dread rushing through her. Each word tore at her resolve, dredging up fears she thought buried long ago. "Maybe you should play instead," one figure taunted, its form shifting, elongating into something grotesque. "What would you give, mother, to save your child? Leave him alone," she yelled, her voice piercing the cacophony of laughter. The shadows writhed, as if they fed off her anger. The ball lay there tempting and twisted. In that moment, Sarah felt its grip tightening around her mind, whispering secrets only she could hear. Dread instilled her with clarity, she knew what it wanted. The hunger, the need clawed at her insides. With her heart racing, she whispered an urgency to Jamie, "We need to get out. Now." He looked at her, confusion tangled with the fear in his eyes. "Mommy, what's wrong?" "It's just a game," he insisted, stepping closer to the ball. "No." The word erupted from her, raw and desperate, pushing him away from the allure of its colors. "It's not just a game." A sudden rush of darkness lunged at them, overshadowing her last words. She barely had time to react as the shadows surged, fierce and wild. They encroached on Jamie, wrapping around him, their icy fingers clawing closer. "Join us, Jamie." The voices chanted, each syllable dripping with malice. "You can be one of us. Forever. Mommy." He screamed, eyes wide with panic. Tears sprang to Sarah's eyes. Her heart shattered at the sight of her son in peril. They were losing this battle. But something flickered in her mind, a memory of light breaking through the oppressive shadow. "Jamie!" she shouted, urgency swelling her voice as she lunged forward, grabbing the ball once more with both hands. The energy flared, unbearably strong, as she felt it pulse, alive and rabid. "Release him!" she cried, summoning every ounce of fury within her. The shadows shrieked, twisting violently away from Jamie. The room shook, the walls trembled around them as laughter turned into frenzied screeches. "Regret this, mother." But she wouldn't let them take him. This time, she willed herself to fight back. She had something more powerful than their darkness: love, determination. With a ferocity she didn't know she possessed, she yanked the ball, dragging it against the pull of the shadows. An explosion of light filled the room, a dazzling eruption that sent the figures recoiling. Sarah and Jamie collapsed to the floor, the shadows writhing against the onslaught. But as ordinary silence settled, the ball lay quiet, yet the shadows snickered from the corners. The game wasn't over. "Mommy, what's happening?" Jamie whispered, eyes darting, searching for reassurance that would not come. Her blood ran cold, dread filling the cracks of her resolve. "I don't know," Jamie, but I think we've only just begun. The ball began to shimmer, brighter now, its colors bleeding into one another like a kaleidoscope of horrors, reminding Sarah that choices had consequences ones she may not be ready to face. What price would she have to pay to keep her son safe? The very thought chilled her to the bone as the weight of uncertainty wrapped around her once more. Outside, the moon hung low and full in the sky, a silent witness to the darkness lying in wait for them. But the laughter, it was growing again, creeping closer, and in that haunting symphony, her fears thrummed in time with its rhythm. What could possibly be worse than losing Jamie? The answer loomed like a shadow, clawing at the edges of her sanity. Are we really free? She wondered out loud, feeling trapped still in the grips of a dark promise, and in that instant, the air shifted ominously. The ball flickered. The room dimmed and someone whispered from the depths, "Your turn to play, Sarah." The shadows narrowed, swirling ominously around them, their whispers growing more intrusive. "Your turn to play, Sarah," they breathed, a cacophony of dead voices merging into one abhorrent chorus. The pleasant tones now dripped with venom, clawing desperately at the edges of her sanity. "Don't listen," Sarah shouted, shielding Jamie from the renewed attack with her body, but she wasn't sure if she was comforting him or just as much a prisoner as he was. The shimmering ball pulsed, teasing her vision. Each beat felt like a countdown, a clock ticking down to what? In a fractured moment of clarity, she understood that the ball held more than just sinister energy. It was a portal to whatever malevolence lingered in this cursed house. She needed to close it, but how was she supposed to undo something that felt so vast, so deeply ingrained in the fabric of the place? "Mommy, the shadows are there talking to me," Jamie whimpered, his voice barely louder than a whisper, drenched in fear. But even within his terror, Sarah saw a flicker of disbelief, a desperate longing to trust her once again. "No, Jamie, they're lying," but as she said it, doubt gnawed at her. What if, somehow, he could hear them? What if they were right? Panic coursed through her veins, shivers crawling across her skin. "Join us, Jamie," the voices coaxed, each syllable draped in seduction, crawling into her son's mind. "You can have a life with us forever." The walls pulsed around them, as if the very house was alive and hungry. Her heart raced, a feral beat against the growing terror. "We have to go. Now!" Sarah screamed, yanking Jamie toward the door. But the shadows shifted, laughing as if in mockery of her desperate attempts. They reached out, fingertips stretching, trying to ensnare them both. Sarah felt cold tendrils wrap around her ankle, pulling her back, clutching like a vice. A wild, primal instinct kicked in. "Jamie, run!" She didn't look back, fueling her strength with the adrenaline of urgency. But how could she leave without him? His small hands gripped hers, and they were stuck, yanked in different directions by forces unseen. "Mommy, please." Desperation crinkled his face, his trust shaking like a fragile thread. With newfound determination, Sarah closed her eyes, focusing on the warmth of love radiating from their bond. She reached deep inside, seeking the flicker of light that had once fought alongside her. She opened her eyes and shouted with every ounce of resolve, "This ends now." The ball before them glowed, an agonizing brightness melting the shadows with a searing intensity. The figures recoiled, their laughter faltering. Sarah could sense their anger, the madness unraveling with each second of light. She had power, and maybe just maybe that was enough, but no sooner than this realization surged through her did the shadows surge back with vengeance, clawing, spitting curses as the darkness thickened. "You think you can master this game?" the chorus snarled. "You have no idea the price of your choice." The shadows twisted around her, clawing at her skin, drawing her closer to the ball that throbbed with ominous energy. The infectious laughter echoed anew, fueling the encircling darkness, as swirling whispers invited her to play. "Join us, be part of the fun forever." Terror erupted in Sarah's mind. She would not allow this. But the shadows felt sticky, insidious, invading her thoughts. How much longer before she surrendered? "What do you want from me?" She screamed against their clutches, feeling her sanity fraying, each second draining her resolve. "Your son," they hissed, like a snake slithering in her ear. "He can be ours if you join the game." Like a punch to the gut, the choice hung heavy in the air, a cruel gambit closing around her. The ball-esque glow dimmed slightly, revealing a path of dread. What was left of her defiance narrowed down to that chilling question, and its answer hovered just out of reach. The shadows tightened. Sarah watched Jamie's eyes, filled with horror, and the realization struck like lightning. What would she give to save him? What horrors awaited them should she fail? The laughter echoed one last time, dark and mocking, enveloping them in a din of despair as the air thickened with a final whisper, "Choose wisely, Sarah." Then, silence fell, heavy and oppressive, leaving an unbearable weight. What if her choice could lead them both into the shadows or free them entirely? The suffocating tension lingered, and it was suddenly more than just a game. It was a question of survival. Would they escape, or would she plunge them into a fate more horrifying than she could ever imagine? The shadows seemed to retreat for a heartbeat, as if puzzled by Sarah's fierce declaration. But an undercurrent of malevolence thickened the air. The laughter, once more, erupted in a cacophony, echoing off the walls and creeping into the depths of her mind. "Are you ready to play, Sarah?" They jeered, voices intertwining beyond comprehension. "Stay close to me, Jamie," she urged, her voice straining against the pressure of the atmosphere. They remained tethered by fear, her grip around his small fingers tightening like a lifeline. Step by trembling step, she moved backward toward the door, but the shadows melted forward, a tide of darkness threatening to engulf them both. "Don't let it take you, don't let it take me," she whispered, panic twisting in her gut. "Mommy, I can see them," Jamie cried, his wide eyes reflecting the horror that surrounded them. "See what?" She felt a chilling grip clasp around her spine, the temperature plummeting. "What do you see, Jamie?" They look sad," he stammered, his voice cracking. "They want to play with us, Mommy. They want to keep us here. No. They want to ruin us," Sarah snapped. But deep down, she understood the gravity of their situation. The shadows were not merely manifestations of fear, they were alive, sentient, twisting every emotion into dark tendrils of despair. With every breath, her resolve threatened to break. "You have to trust me," she said, but her heart screamed an ultimatum. She had to find a way to destroy the glowing ball, the conduit of the shadows, before it consumed her entirely. As she surveyed the room, the once familiar walls shifted, their appearance blending into grotesque shapes, whispering stories of despair. The furniture wove back into placeholders of memory, each item radiating darker energy than the last as if beckoning her closer. "Mommy!" Jamie cried again, sounding so small beneath the chorus of torment. "Look out!" Tendrils of shadow suddenly whipped through the air. They snaked around her wrists, pulling her hands toward the ominous sphere. The glow burbled like malefic energy, inviting her to submit. The laughter sang a siren song, each note tempting her with promises of power, a chance to free themselves from the confines of their existence. "Join us, join the game." Sarah's will faltered under their onslaught. Images of her son being swept into the depths of darkness began to fill her thoughts. Her heart raced, pounding out a frantic rhythm of desperation. Would he really be safe if she gave in? Was this all a mental trick? "Jamie, hold on!" she screamed, fighting against the encroaching tendrils. The shadows shrieked, and the air thickened, drawing on her fear and her uncertainty. She felt the weight of dread pressing in, stifling her breath. In a moment of primal instinct, she yanked her body sideways, wrenching Jamie from the shadow's hold. "We have to find a way, we must get rid of that thing." But where could they run to? The doorway was now a gaping maw of darkness, a portal threatening to devour them whole. "Exit, no exit," came the muffled laughter, coiling around them relentlessly. Their voices became an echo, a taunting reminder of their helplessness. The glowing ball pulsed fiercely, a sinister heartbeat that intertwined with her own. Could she break its hold? Only if she surrendered anything. "Jamie," she whispered, as if channeling her energy into him, "we must do this together. Can you hold on?" Jamie nodded, his wide eyes shimmering with fear, but also a flicker of determination. She took a deep breath, feeling their connection like a tether against the shadows. "On the count of 3, she said, counting her heartbeat and the pulse of the ball. 1, 2, 3. With a surge of shared energy, they turned as one toward the glowing tormentor, arms raised defiantly. "Enough!" Sarah screamed. "We refuse to play." The shadows howled in rage, their thunderous voices escalating into a furious wave crashing against the walls, as if the house itself was in pain. But as Sarah's heart raced, the shadows quivered. Did they have enough power to resist? And in that moment of clarity intertwined with utter chaos, she wondered, was this truly the end of the game or merely the beginning of a far darker one? As the pulsating light grew brighter, she could feel the fabric of reality tearing. With one last push, they aimed for freedom. But then came the voices again, a terrifying whisper beneath the din, this isn't over yet what awaited them on the other side. Would they escape, or would they fall deeper into the abyss they fought so hard to resist? The world around Sarah and Jamie shattered like glass, splintering into jagged shards of light and darkness. In an agonizing instant, they were not just pulling away from the glowing ball, they were being pulled apart. A violent wind whipped through the room, a chorus of shadows shrieking as if the very air was alive with rage. "Mommy!" Jamie cried, his voice lost amidst the chaos. His small body threatened to slip from her grasp, the tendrils of shadow still clawing at them, trying to reclaim their hold. "Hold on, Jamie!" she called out, her voice a frantic note piercing through the madness. The shadows lashed out, striking the walls with fury. Each impact echoed like a bell tolling doom, vibrating through the floor and up into her bones. Just as they reached the edge of the glowing light, Sarah felt a swift, cold breath at the nape of her neck, a warning. Panic blared in her mind like a siren. This was no ordinary place. The house was a living entity, and they were merely its uninvited guests. The moment the brightness peaked, a crack opened just beyond reach, an impossible doorway that shimmered with hope and despair intertwined. "Go!" she shouted, shoving Jamie toward it. But Jamie hesitated, gazing back through the vortex of shadows as if he could see something beyond her sight. "Mommy, I don't want to leave you." His small voice trembled, fighting against the pull of the invisible realm. "Just trust me. Trust us." Fear surged as the shadows writhed and twisted, morphing into figures that whispered secrets of terror into the very air they breathed. She half turned toward the glimmering exit, but a wave of darkness crashed over her, making her skin crawl. Suddenly, everything went silent. The whispers faded, replaced by an echoing heartbeat that pulsated in tune with the ball. The darkness contracted, revealing twisted faces of those once lost to the shadows. Their eyes, voids of regret, bore into Sarah's soul like needles. "You can let go, Sarah," they cooed, a sinister warmth wrapping around her like an embrace. "Join us. Become one of us. You can protect him. You can rule." Every ounce of instinct screamed at her to resist, to fight back. "No!" she snarled, her voice rising above the shadows. But the feeling was intoxicating, a seductive whisper threading through her fear, assuring her that surrendering meant power, that she could commandeer the chaos that surrounded them. "Mommy!" Jamie's cry tore through her thoughts, grounding her. The shadows surged again, wrapping around them in a tight spiral. She gritted her teeth, drawing from the deep well of love she held for her son. "We're not staying here," she shouted defiantly. "We're moving forward." With a sudden resolve, she pulled them both toward the fading light like a comet streaking through the sky, racing against the darkness threatening to devour them. In that last moment, she felt a violent tugging, the house's mournful wails rising into a cacophony of pain as their bodies flew backward. But just as they reached the threshold, an icy hand grasped her wrist, a sudden, vice-like grip that held her back, anchoring her in place. A face emerged from the shadows, twisted and familiar, yet grotesque. "Don't leave, Sarah," it hissed, menace oozing from every word. "You belong to us. You were always meant to be one of us." The burning desperation in Sarah's heart morphed into fury. She pulled against the hold, her heart racing faster as she felt the oppressive despair closing in on her. But as she pushed forward, emotions collided, and the last shred of light flickered, threatening to extinguish for good. Was this the end? Jamie's small hand squeezed hers tightly, his gaze unyielding. "Together, Mommy. We can do it together." In that moment of unbreakable connection, their bond a lifeline amid the encroaching darkness, Sarah found her voice through the panic. "We will not give in. Stop!" came the desperate shriek from the darkness. But now the shadows hesitated, fluttering as if caught in a storm. With one final effort, she flung them toward the spectral door as shadows grasped at their ankles. Reluctant to let go. Would they make it through, or would they be consumed by the very darkness they fought to escape? The light flickered once more as they reached for freedom, and just then, a new voice joined the fray, hissing, dark, full of contempt. "You think it ends here? It's just beginning." The world dissolved as they crossed, leaving behind nothing but whispers of what was and what could never be. But upon crossing, Sarah's heart clenched. Was there truly a way out of the darkness, or had they only traded one nightmare for another? What awaited them on the other side of this new threshold? They landed hard, the ground beneath them solid yet unsettling, like a graveyard of whispers buried in silence. Sarah stumbled, hoisting Jamie up, glancing around. They were inside a vast, dimly lit hall with walls that seemed to pulse and shift, like living skin. The air was thick, heavy with a sense of dread that wrapped around her chest, squeezing tighter with every breath. "Where are we?" Jamie asked, his small voice breaking the stillness. His wide eyes flicked nervously, scanning the shadows that loomed ominously in every corner. "I don't know," Sarah replied, forcing herself to breathe. "But we have to keep moving." They stepped softly, the crunch of something brittle beneath their feet, a carpet of dead leaves, or perhaps something worse. As eerie shadows danced in the weak light, Sarah caught flashes of unsettling figures flitting around the edges. Faces contorted in agony, eyes wide with fear, they prowled along the walls, mouthless screams echoing in her mind. "Mommy!" Jamie's voice broke, pulling at her heart. "I feel them. They're watching us." "Just stay close," she whispered, clutching his hand tighter, needing to ground herself in the warmth of his small fingers. The shadows converged, and from the depths, a low growl filled the space, vibrating through the walls and the floor. It felt like a heartbeat, slow and insistent, as if this place had awareness, a pulse that echoed the horrors woven into its fabric. "What do you want?" Sarah shouted into the dark, fighting the paralysis creeping into her limbs. "What do you want from us?" "The same thing you want," a voice replied, smooth and slithering. It slinked from nowhere yet everywhere at once, wrapping itself around her. "You want to keep your son safe." Something black darted in front of her, a mass of swirling shadows condensed into a figure that was all eyes and teeth. It laughed, a chilling sound that hung in the air like cold smoke. "But you've already failed." A terror shot through Sarah's heart. "We haven't failed." "Not yet." The laughter faded, but the shadows pressed in closer, thickening around Jamie. "You think you can escape what's inside you?" "What do you mean?" Sarah felt cold sweat trickling down her back as the darkness breathed around them, creating a sense of intimacy twisted into threat. "It's already part of you." The voice twisted around the words, shaping them with malice. "You're more like us than you realize. You know it, don't you?" She shook her head, fighting the encroaching despair. "No." An intense wave of sorrow washed over her. Memories of rage and grief surged, images flickering in and out like broken film, her failures as a mother, moments of anger where fear eclipsed love. "Join us, Sarah." Jamie shivered beside her and she dropped to one knee, looking into his eyes. They were innocent, pure, untouched by the torment that plagued her soul. "I want to let them take you, Mommy." As shadows curled above her, spilling into grotesque shapes, Sarah felt the floor beneath her start to shift. The walls whispered promises, and the figures in the dark began to reach for Jamie, tendrils extending toward him, serrated and hungry. The urge to give in, to join them, was powerful. But the furious love for her son burned brighter. "We were meant to be together," she exclaimed. "This isn't the end." Then, amidst the chaos, the floor cracked, opening a gaping chasm that swallowed the darkness reach. It revealed a void, a gateway to endless opportunities or perhaps infinite horrors. But just as hope flickered, a pair of icy hands grasped Jamie from behind. He gasped, and Sarah's heart stopped. "Let him go!" she screamed, her voice raw and frantic as she lunged forward, ready to battle whatever stood against them. With all her might, Sarah pulled Jamie back, but she felt something in the shadows, something cold and merciless, anchoring itself to her instead. "Welcome home," the voice mocked from every direction. In that split second, she realized this was only the beginning. Would Jamie become a pawn in the game of shadows? Would Sarah save him before the darkness turned its focus on them? Both? The void pulsed, daring them deeper into its embrace, whispering secrets she could not yet understand. In that critical moment, a surge of white-hot clarity exploded in Sarah's mind. The shadows clawed at her, seeking to unravel her from the inside, but a fierce love ignited her spirit. Fear for Jamie radiated like a beacon, and with that light, she found her voice. "No!" she bellowed, a defiance that echoed against the shifting walls. "You won't take him. We choose to fight." The shadows hissed, recoiling slightly, caught off guard by her sudden resolve. Jamie's small hands trembled in hers, his innocent trust igniting Sarah's heart. "We're together, Jamie," she affirmed, squeezing his hand tighter as the darkness pulsed, twisting its tendrils seeking to weave them into its fabric. Their connection grew stronger, an unbreakable bond that shimmered in the oppressive gloom. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shuddered, the cracks spreading wider, revealing swirling depths that promised oblivion. The shadows loomed closer, whispering honeyed lies, urging her and Jamie to succumb. "Embrace what you are, join us forever." "No!" Sarah screamed, determined teeth gritted against the weight of the shadows. "What you are is not who we are. You can't take my child." In her mind, images of laughter and joy unfolded, memories of bedtime stories and warm embraces. Each recollection fed her strength, fizzling out the darkness that sought to entwine them in despair. Sarah then imagined the faces of other children, the innocent souls watching from afar, trapped in the shadows, yearning for freedom, too. "Jamie, on 3. We run towards the light." She felt her heartbeat sync with his, a fierce rhythm around which they could pivot. Jamie nodded, his eyes wide yet shining with trust, igniting that flicker of hope. "Ready? 1, 2, 3. They bolted forward just as shadows reached for them, tendrils clawing at their heels, grasping desperately. As they raced toward what they believed was freedom, the ground shook violently, but they pressed on. The glowing light ahead danced, casting flickering shadows on the walls that melted away, showing tendrils reaching out like drowning hands in a pool of darkness. The cacophony of whispers rose, shrieking their despair, "You'll never escape. You belong here." But Sarah swallowed her fear and tightened her hold on Jamie. "Keep going. It's almost within reach." The light pulsed like a heartbeat, vividly alive and beckoning. She could taste the sweet scent of freedom on her lips as they barreled toward it, lungs burning and hearts racing. The shadows surged forward, a rushing tide of angry whispers willing to engulf them. But with every ounce of determination, Sarah shouted, "We're stronger together." With one last burst of speed, she yanked Jamie and propelled them into the warm embrace of the light, willing it to embrace and protect them. They stumbled, feeling the cool grass beneath their feet, a sensation so foreign yet so welcome. The heavy darkness peeled back, the laughing voices fading into distant echoes, leaving only a vast emptiness behind. "Did we make it?" Jamie asked, voice quivering as they looked around. "Yes, baby. I think we did." Sarah inhaled deeply, the fresh air washing over her like a balm, filling her with an overwhelming sense of relief. The familiar sights of her town surrounded them, illuminated under the moonlight, and yet, she could still feel the remnants of shadows lingering just beyond the edges of her vision. The threat wasn't gone, it had just been delayed. As they wrapped each other in a tight embrace, Sarah knew she could never let her guard down. There would always be memories that haunted, secrets ready to seep back in. But as long as they had each other, she swore they would remain vigilant. However, a faint glimmer on the ground caught her eye, the ball, its vibrant colors pulsing gently in the moonlight, shamelessly inviting. "Sarah," Jamie whispered, pulling back slightly as he pointed. The glow felt like it danced teasingly before them, the shadows still hard at work plotting. She quickly shielded Jamie and whispered urgently, "We can't. We must stay away." With fierce resolve, she picked up the ball and hurled it into the distance, watching as it tumbled out of sight, a promise kept. They would remain vigilant, their bond an unwavering defense against whatever darkness awaited. As they stepped away from that tainted ground, Sarah understood the game was over, but they had won this round together. "Now, let us get home," she smiled softly at Jamie, who returned her smile as the air hummed with possibility. The journey might not be easy, but they were safe, for now, and they would face whatever came next with the fierce strength only love could create. And perhaps, someday, they would find a way to banish the darkness lurking beneath the surface for good. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss out on the chilling tales we have in store next time. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and share the love. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. What do you think will happen next? And don't you dare wait. Instantly share this with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this jaw-dropping finale. Only true fans understand the urgency. Act now.